Welcome back. This is Brighter Morning with Bo, and we thank you for tuning in. You are on MCTV, Multicultural TV in Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean region on several channels, and I am Bo Tiwari, your host. My guest this morning is Dr. Vanus James, and let us talk to Dr. James, please. Good morning.
Good morning, Bo.
Good morning. You driving?
Yeah, well, I'm not driving, but I cannot get to an office at this time of the morning. So I have a car in the office.
All right, okay. We will have a little conversation this morning. I hope that you didn't. I hope you got some sleep after the partying for the victory the night before. Or did you party, or did you just go to sleep because you knew that would happen anyway?
Yeah, and the events do not call for partying, in my view. The people can party, but this is a critical moment in the history of Tobago, and it offers a critically decisive opportunity, if the people of Tobago want to grasp it, to reach out for fundamental change. Now, there's no guarantee, as you know, that will happen. Because it is about the extent to which the PDP and the people of Tobago understand what it means to set up a democratic government in Tobago. Yeah. That would give us a chance to succeed on the agenda. But I am continuing the public education effort, and we shall see where we go from here.
All right. Well, I know where you stand. On some of the economic matters, which we'll explore now. You notice I introduced you as someone who has been well-schooled and well-educated. And now, well-schooled doesn't mean well-educated, but well-educated is a very important thing. And a lot of people who are well-schooled are not well-educated. And the distinction I make is a person who has gone through the system, really, and done well in the system, but who also has not surrendered the capacity to think critically about the life he or she lives, the surroundings, the environment in which they operate, and by observation try to understand that based on his or her knowledge. And secondly, to look for creative ways of making things better and therefore providing solutions for problems that can be identified and opportunities that can be seized. Now, I think of you in that way, Vanus, because we've had many, many conversations over many years. I also know your work, and I know that you are a very insightful person, both about Tobago and about Trinidad as individual islands, but also about Trinidad and Tobago as a country and an economy in a world system in which developing countries have particular challenges given the way the economic system is configured. Now, here we have a fresh opportunity. The people have voted overwhelmingly to put the PNM behind them for at least 4 years. And they have given the opportunity for a new party, the PDP, to chart the way forward. And certainly one of the things would be economic sustainability. What do you think the PDP needs to take into account as they go about this business? Now, you mentioned democracy, but what about the economic side? Because I think they are connected.
They are connected, and if you don't understand what to do with the democracy, you can't do anything with the economics. You first have to understand that the PDP's chance, and what the PNM has never understood all my life, the PDP's chance is a chance to government in a way that it could be supervised by the people of Tobago, that the Executive Council could be supervised by the people of Tobago. Now you have 18 members in the executive, in the THA. The first thing you have to watch for is if the PDP puts more than 8 people in the executive council, that signals they have a very minimal grasp of the real issues. You need at least 9 or 10, and maybe 10 of the elected members and the councillors to set up oversight arrangements for an executive council they outnumber in the House. If they do that, they have a chance to bring the population into the process in a credible way and be able to instruct the executive council about what to do with the economy, what to do with the sociology, how to treat with community-based development and so on. But if they don't do that, we'll be in big trouble, and this will be a PNM style government all the way down. The kind of government you run in Trinidad today.
Go ahead. Why you suggest 10, and what would these 10 people do that would make the difference?
They will have to set up oversight committees. So if you set up 8 executive council members, each running a division, they'll be giving you 8 divisions to run the Tobago economy. And each of those divisions must be supervised. Then you have, of course, the public institutions, the publicly owned businesses, and the publicly supported businesses, all of which would need to be overseen by the THA, by the non-executive members of the THA. That's a lot of work, and it's more important work than the executive work, because it sets the tone for policy and it gets the people involved in looking after their own affairs. If you had 10 executive council members and 8 non-executive council members, there could be no supervision, there could be no oversight, because the executive council will outnumber them and outvote them every time. And that's the same problem you have in the parliament in Trinidad. And it's the same problem you had in the PNM-led government. And the PNM has never been conscious of that problem. Nothing I heard from Dr. Rowley before the elections or since the elections signals that he even understands it today. So we have a real need for the society to grow up. And I've spent the last 10 years in Tobago trying to explain this issue to the public about what it means for the people to govern themselves. And this is a decisive moment. If the PDP understands this issue, they will make the critical move that will allow Tobago a real chance to develop and lead the nation in development. But if they fail to understand this and to listen to the voices of people like myself on this question, well, we'll go down the same road Jamaica has gone, Trinidad and Tobago has gone, Bahamas with a landslide victory recently has gone, back down the road of executive government, and that's doomed to failure.
So the issue you are really raising is creating the conditions for a check and consequently a balance in the executive capacity to dominate in the business of governance through government. That is what you are, the point you are making.
That is part of it. But the main issue when you're talking development, Bo, is that you have to bring the people along with you. The people have to work with you. The business community have to know what they're doing, work with you, share with you their problems, and so on. So you need participation by everybody. The economy. If the business community, they should be able to instruct you as to what they want done, and they have no chance to do that, then they couldn't undertake the kinds of investments with government support that is needed to transform a difficult economy like Tobago. So step one is to give the public a chance to weigh in on everything that's important. That is not in the DNA of Caribbean society, as you know, coming from our history. And it's been a nightmare across the region, even in a place like Barbados. It's been a nightmare to get the societies to understand this most fundamental aspect of how you get people power, how you empower the population in a way that could drive development. And as a consequence, no Caribbean economy outside of the Cayman, which practices a lot of what I'm talking about, and Bermuda, which practices a lot of what I'm talking about, learning from the British. None of us have done this thing in any adequate way.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we need to come to Tobago gets a chance to do it, and we need to seize that opportunity.
Yeah, you know, ironically, one of the countries that has proceeded this way is in fact Costa Rica. Now,
Absolutely.
Costa Rica is a country that was, I mean, literally a banana republic. And today, it does not have an exceedingly high per capita income. I mean, Trinidad and Tobago has dropped from about 20,000 US to about 15,000 now, but Costa Rica has significantly grown over years from about 4,000 to about 12,000 now. And it has now been, it has now taken its place, you know, I mean, in terms of recognition in the world as one of those countries that has really made economic progress. And part of the reason for that is that whatever initiatives it is taking, whether it was to bring Intel in order to transform the education sector and to create the conditions for an IT-based set of industries, whether it is the tourism sector in which the government basically sits back and asks the private sector, what do you need that the government can provide, and it then leaves them to go about their business, or whether it's the business of sustainable development and sustainable tourism, in which all the stakeholders are brought in to make sure that that is done, or agriculture, in which it sets targets for production in consultation with the farmers. It has been able to create this kind of condition of democratic participation that has proven to be very valuable. And in a small island like Tobago with 60,000 people, and when you think about it really, when you consider children and so on, you're really talking about much, much less spread over 15 constituency districts in the island. You're talking about relatively small numbers of consultative engagements that in terms of value is very significant. And you think that is possible? You think the PDP can move to that?
Well, I think the PDP can and should. And what we all don't know is the extent to which the rhetoric of the campaign reflects a deep understanding of these issues. But we will know this week, because we will see how they choose to go along with the design. Yeah, if they choose to go down the road of 10 and 12 of them being in the executive council, it will make the business of oversight of the government much more difficult.
Yes.
And it will signal to me that we still have a lot of work to do with the publication to get ourselves on the right path.
Yes. Okay.
Because remember, Bo, the other face of that is the public has to understand these issues too. They have to be able to gear themselves up to participate properly in directing the executive council down the right path.
Yeah, we have had conversations about Tobago and what it could do. We talked about Costa Rica today. We've talked about Cayman Islands before. We've talked about Bermuda before. And I mean, there are many, many options available to Tobago. Yesterday, I talked with Winford James, and I was telling him, you know, people think of Tobago as a small island, but it really isn't that small, because Cayman Islands could fit in it, and many times, and Bermuda could fit in it 5 times, because Bermuda is 22 square miles, and these countries are doing exceptionally well. So the question is, how do you really create the conditions for development to matter to people. And I think one of the cultural elements of Tobago that people seem to ignore is the fact that basically you have, you know, as you do in places like Carriacou and places like Nevis and so on off the coast of St. Kitts, you have what is essentially a peasant farming, land owning culture which has evolved over time. And that those roots are deep, and you also have an innate self-sufficient entrepreneurial culture in the society that has, in a sense, not been properly tapped and, in a sense, has been stymied by the growth of the state apparatus in Tobago. I mean, do you think that the PDP is sanguine enough about these issues to create the conditions for these kinds of building on the land ownership base and the entrepreneurial capacity, and building on the tradition, really, of hard work and self-sufficiency to give the people a chance to develop themselves?
Well, let me say I hope so, and I kind of think so because of the extensive discussions our team and with the of the PDP. But this is not a simple issue. The first critical thing that we have to understand is that this is not about what you're calling the peasant background and all of that sort of stuff. The critical thing to understand here is that if you're going to make it in the modern global economy,
the global economy,
you have to join the ranks of countries that export capital.
Yes.
That is exactly what the Cayman Islands and Bermuda are doing. And that's where St. Kitts is going, St. Kitts Nevis. Yeah. And they too are doing better than Trinidad and Tobago. They're doing 18,000 US dollars compared to the 16,000 or 15,000 you just quoted for Trinidad and Tobago with oil and gas. Capital production opens the door to 4 big engine projects in Tobago, really, that I think the PNM has never understood. One is the exportable education. There is no way we are going to go forward unless the nation comes together to invest in a capacity to produce and export education based in Tobago with the tourism platform we have. We have to understand that as Tobago, and the government in Trinidad and the people of Trinidad must also understand that. It's a team effort by the nation to set up a platform in Tobago that stands a chance of really succeeding, partly because of the tourism platform, but partly because of the investment we're going to undertake to bring high quality educators into the Tobago space, superior to what you have even in UWI in Trinidad right now, and market that to the world so you could bring people here to do long stay tourism, go to school, live here. You've seen the impact of students coming to hang around UWI in St. Augustine. You've seen the impact of that on the St. Augustine economy.
Of course, it makes a big difference.
We have to understand that. And as a THA, push the government of Trinidad and Tobago and the nation to launch that investment program here. That takes expertise, and it takes political toughness and guile, and the support of the people of Tobago. The second thing we have to be able to do is do that same thing for healthcare. That's a second option we have. Cuba has gone the farthest down that road in the Caribbean. It's the right road, and it can be done here if the nation comes together to do it. It can't be done, in my view, as successfully in Cuba, although some of it can be done there. But the platform we have for the tourism in Tobago allows you to excel in it here on that platform. But it still has to be a national investment. It still has to be that the country lures the world to come in, lures the top university, medical schools, Loma Linda, Johns Hopkins, and so on, as a national project, to set up high quality, well-funded, exportable healthcare services, inclusive of the vaccine making capacity and so on that Cuba has demonstrated, or whatever else is relevant. If we can do that, we have a second leg on which to walk. And the same story is true for the creative industries and for the housing services that underlie what St. Kitts Nevis is doing. They're exporting housing services with the architectural services and a whole range of capital services that allow for long stay visits. Boy, you can't do long stay visits in Marriott style
Yeah.
5-star hotels. It's going
Sure.
to be too expensive.
Sure.
You need what Cayman is doing in this small scale, high quality A-class apartments and so
You
on
need a house
to
or you
drive
need
that
an
process
apartment. Yes, of course.
for a long 3-month, 6-month stay. That is the kind of thinking that is going to allow Trinidad and Tobago to diversify its economy and allow Tobago to take its place in the economic development process. But you could see that none of that is possible unless we set up a national democracy. Because Tobago and Trinidad have to work together in this process. And you have to have enough autonomy in Tobago for us to take a look at the facts and drive the process on behalf of the nation in the right direction.
Yeah.
And at the same time, we have to have democracy inside Tobago to allow the business community to participate in shaping how those programs develop. And finally, you're going to need the communities to take responsibility for the small things, for the box drains and the education of the child in the home and all of these little foundations that are important to development and for the society to participate in it. But you don't need the THA to go down in the villages and handle those problems.
Yeah.
So you need to set up community-based, community development programs that anchor the development among the people. If you could do that, you have a chance. But if you can't, you become a Jamaican.
Have there been pre-election discussions about these things? And is there an internalization of how these things fit together? Because I could see the pattern forming, which is that you have the traditional bases in Tobago, which you want to kind of unleash and allow people to look after it, to produce food and all of those things, to catch fish and all of those things. But you want to take the island in a different direction, building on whatever infrastructure it has, and adding infrastructure as part of a national effort. Education, healthcare, creative industries, housing to support the healthcare and education industries, and the creative industries, and deepening of the democracy, the broadening of the democracy in Tobago and Trinidad. A deepening of the democracy in Tobago, broadening of the democracy in Tobago and Trinidad. And more than that, community participation and responsibility for community development, basically. And there is a kind of holistic approach to something like this that really creates the conditions for a very enlightened view of a division of labor and really draws on whatever capacities Tobago does not have or might not have for Trinidad to become involved in the effort. And more than that, for international players to be part of that effort. So I give you the closing thing on this because we've got a break for the news now. But thank you for outlining that.
Well, I think we have a real shot. I think these elections signal that the people of Tobago understood the conversation that we were conducting over the last 5-7 years. And now it's for the real players inside the PDP, 8-7 PDP 14, now becoming PDP, to really bring to the people the leadership of this process. My hope and my dream is that finally somewhere in the Caribbean we could do this properly, and why not Tobago?
Well, Tobago is a real good place to start because of its size and because of this now political change and victory and what you might call the comprehensive coming together of forces in this society. So I wish you well in that, and we will continue the conversation, Vanus, because I know we have plenty to talk about in the months ahead. Thank you very much for being my guest this morning on Brighter Morning. And always good to talk to you.
You're welcome.
All right then. This is Brighter Morning with Bo. I am Bo Tiwari. And we just spoke to Dr. Vanus James, who lives and works in Tobago as an international consultant. He has worked for many institutions, including the United Nations and various regional institutions. He did an important study some time ago, which must be somewhere in the Ministry of Planning, on creative industries and intellectual property based industries in Trinidad and Tobago. Very insightful. And I want to thank you for watching. This is Brighter Morning with Bo, and we now shift to the news with Andrew Chan. Stay with us.